I love the kitchen. For me, it's not just a place to cook in and eat in, it's a place to live in. And maybe I shouldn't say this because I know it's a terrible cliche, but it's true. The kitchen really is the heart of the home. And what's also true for me is that it doesn't really matter whether I've got time on my hands and I can cook slowly and leisurely, or if I'm really up against it and have to do frantically fast meals. The thing is, if I'm in the kitchen, I'm happy. When it comes to food, I believe in giving everything a go. Now, the rewards for the adventurous eater are obvious, but actually they're there for the cook too. Every time I cook something for the first time, I never can get over how easy it is. Make bread in minutes. My Irish oaten rolls require no yeast, no kneading, and provide instant comfort and instant gratification. Putting salt into a sweet course might sound odd, but believe me, my sweet and salty crunchy nut bars are the stuff of greedy dreams. If I suggest you make black rice by dyeing it with squid ink, please don't shriek in horror, because I promise you, my squink risotto is as spectacular to eat as it is simple to make. And finally, I like to breathe new life into old traditions by getting a shin of beef, braising it with Asian flavours and topping it with a sour, hot, crunchy salad. There is so much mystique around bread making, and I get it, or up to a point, but the thing is, making bread's not hard. The worst that can be said is that there's a lot of hanging around, but not with my Irish oaten rolls. I mean, they're pretty well instant. I'm starting off with 200 grams of strong wholemeal flour, and strong means there's a lot of gluten, which you need for bread, not for cakes. And now, these are oaten rolls, so you need 50 grams of oats. There they are. Don't use instant oats, by the way. A teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of bicarb, or baking soda, and that's why normally bread like this is called soda bread. But we call it bicarb, just a teaspoon. And now the magic, the ingredients that make the bicarb really act. You want some stout. If it's flat, that's great, and this has lost most of its fizz. Well, there's a bit left there. Very Irish. And equally Irish, actually, some buttermilk. Or use runny yoghurt. That was lucky. Going to stir these together. You know, so the point about this is that you don't need to wait for the weekend. If you've got someone coming round rather unexpectedly, this is the basis for a fantastic impromptu meal. And some oil, just 2 spoonfuls, 2 tablespoons. This is ordinary groundnut oil. You don't want any strong flavours. We've got enough there with the stout. And the flour itself has a fabulous nutty taste. Now here's the thing. The oil that's gone into this tablespoon will make sure that the honey, and I need 2 tablespoons of that, slips easily off the spoon. Let's hope this second one does. And if you're not using oil in a recipe ever, all you need to do is get a bit of oil on some kitchen towel and wipe around. Scarcely need to wash that up. So of course, unlike bread normally, you don't have to knead this, you just mix it up. You want a porridge rather than a dry dough. Really, you're going from mixture to meal in under half an hour. All you need to do to turn this into a meal is throw together some bits and pieces to eat with. I've got some cornichons and onions, they're like the little gherkins. I've got some caper berries and some cream cheese, bit of smoked salmon to go with, some dill, because it's reminding me of the greenness of Ireland and I love the taste of it. The whole point of these is their rustic charm, so don't worry about them looking perfect. This little adornment of oats, and these need just 12 to 15 minutes in a 220 oven, and the whole house will be filled with a heady and welcoming scent of baking. Hello, my blonde beauty.
Oh, I smell fresh baking.
Very fresh. There's one evening that I remember, it's seared into my mind, when I was watching TV, grazing greedily as one does, and I had some salted peanuts in one hand and some chocolate in the other. And I have to tell you, the combination was just a taste sensation. And I've worked on several recipes, really, to bring these two partners together, and I am in a fever of excitement at my latest venture. Sometimes I just feel like going lusciously over the top, and when I'm in that mood, my salt and sweetie crunchy nut bar is a must. There's something about it that is just addictive, and perhaps part of that is that the base of it, for all its name, is chocolate. You can really use chocolate in whatever permutation you like. Just 300 grams of chocolate. At the moment, I'm using 200 grams of milk chocolate and 100 of dark. But sometimes I feel like that children's party sweetness, and I use all milk. Sometimes I feel like being very sophisticated, and I use all dark. To help the chocolate melt and later set silkily, I need some butter. Don't give me any trouble about this. You wouldn't eat this every day. Even I wouldn't eat this every day. I could, but I won't. On top of the butter, just a bit of golden syrup, about 3 spoonfuls, to help everything stay glossy when it melts. And now we can begin, cautiously of course, the melting. Going to help everything on its way. So really I am making chocolate bars out of chocolate bars. It's worth it. Now, I promised you sweet and salty, and I shall give you sweet and salty. In fact, salty first, provided just by regular salted peanuts. Odd perhaps to have in something that's sweet, but for me, the balance between salt and sweet is so fantastic. When you eat these, it's like several klaxons going off in your head all at once. Now, the sweet, just in case the golden syrup and the chocolate weren't enough, is provided by some chocolate-coated honeycomb bars. There are very few certain pleasures in life, but this is surely one of them. Now the chocolate has melted and I have the most fantastic pan full of a molten chocolate lake in here. Mix the peanuts and honeycomb together so that everything, the salt and sweet, is dispersed equally. So you get a bit of each and every bite. And in to the pan, and then straight away into another pan. I use a throwaway foil container, one that's actually sold for barbecuing, I think. But it's so easy. It does mean you can get the chocolate bars out very easily. Otherwise, just use a 20 centimetre by 30 centimetre tin and line it with foil. Now, I would say once this is sat in the fridge for about 4 hours, it really depends on how cold your fridge is. I cut these into about 16. They go very fast. Make sure to get yours in first. Into the fridge. The sweet and salty crunchy nut bars are set and ready to go on their plate. Pyramid of pleasure. When I was about 15, I was going through a very profound Oscar Wilde period, and I was so obsessive that not only did I have to read everything he ever wrote, but I had to read anything that might be even subliminally mentioned in one of his books. And there was, I think, some sort of reference to a book that Lord Henry Wotton gave Dorian Gray. And the book in real life was a novel called À rebours, translated normally as Against the Grain. And it was meant to be the sort of apogee of decadence. And in it was a meal that everything was black, and piles of caviar and strange things like mule steaks and stews in licorice water. And I hadn't really thought about this until I went to Venice. And then when I saw those fantastically moody, dark squid risottos, I thought, you know what? I'm going to have my decadent moment. I am going to cook my black risotto. Prepared for the squid ink. And don't worry, this won't hurt at all. The squid ink comes from sachets. I get them from the fishmonger. I want to snip off and squirt this really thick, viscous ink into the stock. Doesn't look that black now, but it will. It will. My second sachet. Right. So the risotto proper. A black risotto is simply a risotto that's dyed black with squid ink. Hence my squink risotto. Some olive oil, just regular olive oil. And I've got some chopped spring onions. And now some garlic. Normally I'm so happy to use garlic infused oil, but because of the pungency really of the squid ink, it smells of the sea, and it's like some deep experience long ago. I want the real heat and hit of fresh garlic. And into this goes the rice. I like carnaroli. I want 250 grams. So the idea here is to turn the rice into the oil just so it's slicked with it slightly. It's not going to be glossy. There's too much rice and not enough oil. Normally with risotto, you put white wine in at this stage, but I want to revel in the deep dark tones of the squid ink, and so I'm going for red wine. And again, the deep flavours are much more suitable. So that's just about a glass of red wine. Hear the bubble. Ruby liquid there. And stir this in. I don't want this to bubble away, but just to bubble down a bit. It's all happening now. I feel a bit like I'm spinning various discs here with all my pans, but I think we're okay. First ladleful of black stock. In we go. And now it's just a question of stirring. Each ladleful of stock has got to be absorbed into the rice before another ladleful goes in. Takes about, I suppose, under 20 minutes. Just standing by the stove and stirring makes me calm, makes me happy. It really is like some primeval soup. I love this black risotto just as it is, actually, but I have a little flourish that I like. What I like to do is just fry a little red chilli, just chopped. So on top of that, I've got some chopped squid, well, sliced squid, into rings in the traditional manner with some tentacles. And this contrasting squid mixture tops flamboyantly but beautifully my squink risotto. Perfect. Almost ready to roll. One thing, a quick bit of parsley, only a small amount. And dish up. You can use bowls if you like. I just love seeing it on this white plate. Now, like this, we have, of course, the perfect date dinner for Goths. Just tumble in the tender white rings and the red chili confetti, and in honour of the Italian flag, some green parsley. I am so ready for this. Whether you call this a stew or a casserole, there is no doubt that my Asian braised shin of beef is quintessential comfort food. I love cooking this when I want to make a weekend feel cosy and I've got time to potter in the kitchen. Like all stews, it starts with an onion, and that in itself is reassuring. But although I like the familiar, I don't always want sameness, and so this stew has a little bit of zing and tang, slightly different. 4 garlic cloves go into this, and I can tell you, my granny would not have made a stew with 4 cloves of garlic. And I've got some fresh ginger. For me, ginger really is the scent of Asian food. So I'm adding a lot of it. I want all that peppery warmth. And now the earthiness of some ground coriander. This stew may be comfort food, but it really has a lot of bite. Just give these a blitz. I've really blitzed the onions and the ginger to a mush here, and this really spicy onion mixture goes into some groundnut oil in a big pan. And the reason why this pan is so big is because I got clunking great big bits of beef shin to go in a minute. This part is about intensifying the flavour, and there is still a lot of flavour to come. They won't brown, of course, because it is a wet mixture, but it might darken a little. I call this Asian braised shin of beef, but it's really the inspiration that is Asian. But part of it is all about this fantastic Shaoxing wine. Good dollop in there, and this will bubble up. Now, if you can't find this, don't worry, because sherry will do, but I love the taste here. See, it's excitedly bubbling up now. So on top, some sugar, not a lot, some dark brown sugar. And to balance that, a vicious hit of rice vinegar. Saltiness essential with meat. Soy sauce. And then a bit of thick, luscious oyster sauce. A bit of a stir. This is a casserole quite unlike the ones you may have been brought up on. A lot of stock. Now, I get the shin of beef from a butcher, and they happen to sell beef stock as well, but any beef stock you can get, use. There's a lot going in, but what is the point of a stew without all that lovely sauce? There's a lot of meat here. Look at this. Beautiful. There's some primitive part of me that derives particular pleasure from cooking meat on the bone. And look at that. Great chunks of it. And you can see the marrow inside. It's the bone and that marrow that gives such flavour and make the meat so melting. There's an old saying which is, the nearer the bone, the sweeter the meat. And it's really true. Now, shin does come off the bone too, and you can use that just cubed, in which case I'd say 1 kilo rather than the 3.5 kilos here. This is old style cooking, but just with a lot of new flavours added. And talking of new flavours, I have a final flourish here with some cinnamon. About 2 sticks. If you wanted to, you could have added some ground cinnamon along with the ground coriander earlier. And here, some beautiful star anise. It doesn't matter whether they're whole or in bits. The pan is bubbling away merrily now, so lid on. And this now needs to go into a low oven, 150, for 2 to 3 hours until it's tender. And while that cooks in the oven, I'm going to do no more than a little slobbing out on the sofa. After the shin has cooked, I take the pieces of meat out, keep them warm, and then reduce the juices by about half, so I've got a thick sauce. My hot and sour shredded salad is the eventual adornment for the Asian braised beef, its crowning glory. I've got the juices from the meat bubbling away there, reducing nicely, and the meat itself under a tent of foil in the oven. And this salad topping, because that's what it is, takes it to a new level. That's the green chilli and the carrots done. I've got a red chilli to go and some spring onions. The idea really is that the stew is rich, and then you suddenly have a hit of spikily dressed raw carrots and chilies and spring onions. So it's almost as if you've got the crunch as well as the sourness as a sort of textural and taste contrast. And finally, some coriander. Now for the dressing. I said this was going to be hot and sour, and it really is. Well, the heat is really just from the chilies. The sour is provided by the juice of a lime. I'm going to amplify the sourness with some fish sauce. Always balance. Can't always manage it in life, so you may as well try and get it right in cooking. Some sugar. There's no oil in this dressing, and that's on purpose. You don't need it. The whole point is the marrow in the shin of beef melts into the stew to make a gravy of such gorgeous unctuousness. You want something sprightly and sharp. Although I always put these crunchy vegetables on top of the stew, I serve it with all sorts of different starches, but today I am in the mood for noodles, and therefore it will be noodles. I've got some boiling salted water, and these just take 3 minutes or so. Aren't they pretty, these little flat discs? Compacted nests. Quick stir. Beautiful. But now it's time for the moment of truth, the carnal unveiling. Back in a mo. Now, before I take the foil off,
I just have to remind you, you know, stews are about flavour, not form. That's my way of saying it's not going to look very pretty. Not at this stage. That's the whole point as well of this crunchy salad topping. On goes the gravy. What would a stew be like without the gravy? Love this. And now, I strew. And one last scattering of coriander. And I know, believe me, I do know how mad it is, or how mad it sounds to have salad scattered on top of a stew. But really, would I lead you astray? And here we are, ready to go to the table in all its eccentric splendour. I have tipped a salad over a stew. Have you? On purpose. No, I really have. I think noodles first, I think as a base. It does. OK, now if you hover near me, Carlo. Does anyone want some more salad? Yeah.
Is it bone marrow in the bowl?
Well, it was, but you can see where the holes are in the shin bone. That's what's gone into the stew juices.
So what's the cut?
Shin.
Shin of beef. It's very fragrant. I could smell it, you know, as we were coming into the room. It smells absolutely beautiful.
I know, I call it my Asian flavours, which does sound a bit like a massage parlour. Yum, yum. This is my kind of recycling. I mean, I always believe that leftovers are right, just taking it a little bit further, because I've got a cunning plan to turn the remnants into a piece of jewellery. Necklace, anyone?